There's a bigger issue here. Just because a group of people belong to the Federation, it does not mean that they are saints. The trouble is Earth. On Earth, there is no poverty, no crime, no war. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters and you see paradise. Well, it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Out there, all the problems haven't been solved yet. Out there are no saints, just people. Angry, scared, determined people who are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
What I want to know is, out of all the stories you told me, which ones were true and which ones weren't?
My dear doctor, they're all true.
Even the lies?
Especially the lies.
On behalf of the Bajoran government
And the Promenade Merchants Association,
I officially welcome you to Deep Space Nine.
Welcome back to Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast. Thank God we cut off the audio before the show because Nicole learned certain things happen in gyms, and thank God no one told her about the saunas because we might have just lost Nicole on that one. We are here to discuss the Season 2 episode of Deep Space Nine, Paradise. I am Blake, and with me is...
Chris.
Nicole.
Prentice.
Mike.
Emily.
And Christopher.
And I understand for a synopsis on this one, Emily, you got some thoughts and possibly a few feels on this one. So what do we got for a synopsis?
All right, let me bring it up. I had to write it all out so I can make sure I cover all my thoughts because this might be the episode I hate most of DS9.
It's Alexis, isn't it?
Alexis! Yeah, it's her. Fuck her and her fake ass smile and her fake ass voice. Anyway, on to my synopsis. Sisko and O'Brien are trying to find a planet for a new colony. Unfortunately for them, the planet they find already has a colony. The colony is a cult led by a psychotic white woman who has delusions of grandeur and oozes enslaver vibes. She tries to break Sisko of his resistance to join their cult and is willing to let him die if he doesn't. Thankfully for Sisko, O'Brien has skills and is able to prove Alexis had planned the whole fake ship crash and tech not working so she could try to create her paradise. Dead Sea and Kira show up just in time to help Sisko and O'Brien escape the creepy cult colony and take Alexis and her son back where hopefully she gets the punishment she has earned.
Damn.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us for Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast. I think that just sums it up right there. A cult led by a psychotic white woman. Oh, so much commentary that we could dive into on that one. But instead, let's get our first impressions from our newbies, and let's go ahead and start with... I'm going to start with Chris, because I can't keep having Chris and Christopher go back to back, so we'll start with Chris this time.
So, I'm all there with Emily. Hated this episode. Alexis was giving hardcore Mademoiselle Candide. She was like Leo DiCaprio's long-lost sister from Django, out there running the slave plantation. She was trying to slut out like the only other prominent minority woman in the camp and have her go initiate Sisko into the Mandingo Club. I was like, what the fuck am I watching right now? This shit is just out of control. She was so annoying. The cult mentality was getting on my nerves. I was just like, this shit. And then, every time this episode going on, they kept showing Sisko. He kept giving Toby from Roots vibes, like, say your name. Say it, Toby! Like the whole time I was just like, God damn, and then they're gonna put him in the hot box. It reminded me of the boom box from Hook. Remember Hook had the box on his ship and he put old boy in the boom box. I was like, what is this, the boom box? Gonna sweat him out in the hot box. It pissed me off. Every scene just made me more and more mad. And then at the end I didn't feel like she got her comeuppance like she should have. She's smug ass grin with her son, who had to be adopted because they look nothing fucking alike, but that's casting and that's just me hating the episode so much. By that point, I just wanted to rip apart every single person and scene in it. But yeah, that's how I felt.
Tell us how you really feel, Chris.
Yeah.
Please.
I told you, I'm riding with Emily on this one, all the way.
Nicole.
Well, my thoughts are pretty exactly that as well. My first reaction was, what in the cult is this? This is giving me cult leader vibes. And then I was like, the way she was caressing, what's his name? Vidnock or whatever, the Vinod or whatever. Mm-hmm. I was like, is this a sex cult? Like, is she fucking her son? First, I was like, okay, it's a cult. Then I thought it was a sex cult because I thought there was some creepy vibes going on with her and the son, like really weird, like overly. Is she just proud and protective, or is she banging him? I'm not really sure. And then sending that beautiful woman who also is a non-white woman in there to seduce Cisco, and he fucking caught on right away, and he called the woman out, and she's like, "Yeah, so what?" So, okay, you're a madam, you're a slave driver. So basically, you're a fucking trafficker, essentially. I was just like, what am I watching? And I knew from the jump, I was like, there's no way there's something going on here. Like, she purposely did something. I had a feeling that she was behind the technology not working. I was like, when the guy, her husband, was like, oh, she made us throw it all away because it was who we used to be. No, she fucking used it so you couldn't fucking figure it out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just was like, okay, this is either a cult, a sex cult. It's creepy. I don't like it. And then at the end, they all should have fucking hung her ass up by her fucking ankles and beat her with a stick. That's what I would have done instead of sending her back with fucking Cisco. Like, they were just like, oh, okay, we'll stay here in our happy little land. Like, nah, bitch. I would have been like, peace. I'm packing my bags. Those kids at the end were watching them leave, like, oh shit, we're stuck here. You know, like. So yeah, this was a wild ass episode. There was some good lines though. The O'Brien fat, lazy, and dull comment. He goes, "Oh, my wife said that." I was cracking up, and then I just loved when Dex was like, "I'm the science officer. It's my job to find a better idea." Like that. There was some good lines that made me giggle, but overall, what the hell, man? Whoever wrote this has got a weird fucking brain.
Okay. Christopher.
All right. So I
Oh,
know
God.
we're not writing this. This is not video, but everything that y'all have said is right in here. The first thing I wrote down, this is a fucking cult. The second thing I wrote down is why did they have to bring the Asian lady in for the happy ending massage with Cisco, right? The fat, lazy, and dull. Wrote that down. You guys have hit on everything. So the episode, it pisses you off, but I thought that it was done well. Like it was meant to piss you off.
God damn it,
right?
you're stealing my point.
And so, sorry, Mike. Everyone else stole my idea. I had to steal somebody else's. Okay. So I enjoyed the episode in that aspect because I thought it was well done. She's a terrible person. It's a fucking cult. The knitting cult lady has 10 points and they hit them all. Like they hit every single point that she makes. It's a fucking cult. The other thing that I liked, my other first impression was while they didn't have a whole lot to do, the Dax and Kira, their scenes were good. I liked that. And like when Dax like went all like vaquera on the other runabout to get it after they tried to like jettison it into the sun, I enjoyed that scene. So I thought the episode was well executed. Alexis is a terrible person, but I enjoyed the episode and I enjoyed seeing like a stronger kind of side of Cisco where he was like, you can beat me, but I'm not going to take it. I'm not going to break. Everything you try to do to me, I am here. I am strong and you're not going to beat me down. So I enjoyed it.
And let's switch over to those who have watched this several times. Mike, since one of your points already got stolen, what else you got?
That was kind of the whole thing. I was gonna say like I wanted to go around and ask everybody like kind of what do you really not like the episode or do you not like the content of the episode? Because my takeaway was that yeah, this episode pissed me off. Like it was really frustrating because of what was going on, not because it was done poorly. I think the idea of it is actually pretty clever, and the execution of it I think was pretty well done too, because we got some good character moments, and I did really like the way that you saw a deep dive not only into Miles fucking Galactic Commando O'Brien, but also the way that Cisco chose to handle it was really important to me in terms of his character, because he could have done a lot of different things. He could have just started swinging, right? But instead he recognized like, no, Alexis, you're in charge here, but I need to show everybody what's up. And I have to do that in like the right way to get their attention, to win hearts and minds. And if that means that I have to show you that I'm tough, that I'm going to resist, that I can't be broken, that I'm going to stick to my convictions, that's what he did, and that's, I think, a really pivotal part of his character. So I think that was really good. Yeah, overall, man, I do think that while this isn't an episode that I'm necessarily like excited to watch again because it is kind of upsetting, I do think that it's actually a really pretty good episode of DS9, all things considered.
Emily.
One of the reasons I don't like this episode is actually because it's so well done and it gets that visceral like rage reaction. Like I can't watch it and not get angry. So I appreciate that they did it the way they did it and that they did it well. And I do appreciate that they actually used a white woman as a cult leader, because most of the time it's men, but women are the ones used to lure people into the group because of how women are perceived. So I kind of like that was a twist a little bit on some of the cult mentality and ideology. And I think it kind of highlights how cult leaders and enslavers have a lot of similar characteristics. The Venn diagram of traits is going to have a lot of overlap there, because she definitely, I would love to know how she talked those people into the plantation style punishment of that box in the field, because holy hell, that was wild.
Prentice.
Yeah, I agree with Mike, Emily. It was a very well done episode. It was visceral. I think we've been in kind of a lull the last couple of episodes we've watched for this season, Deep Space Nine. And I think someone mentioned earlier, we haven't seen a lot of Cisco. He's been kind of missing in action. So to see him develop and see him take a strong stance, but yet dignified, like Mike and Emily said, it wasn't loud, right? But he was definitely strong in his emotions in a very stoic way, how he approached the Karen in space. Forgot her name. What's her name again?
Alexis, just as bad. So with that being the case, I thought it was well done. And we talk about the cult of personality and cults. That's a very interesting subject matter. I did some research on the episode, and Michael Piller, one of the writers of the show and co-creator, said, I wanted to do an episode about cults. I found it was very interesting because he had his own family member that was involved in the cult. So from that standpoint, I thought it was very interesting. And I got to say, I think, Nicole, you've been saying this for a while. O'Brien is one of your favorite characters. I give him much more respect now on the rewatch of Deep Space Nine. Why? O'Brien is a ride or die guy. He's like, I don't want my commander to go into that hot box. It was me. And he's really that kind of loyal guy you want in the field with you if you're going through that kind of situation. O'Brien is loyal. He is hardworking. And he's an every man's man in these situations. So I really am starting to appreciate O'Brien now more than ever. And it's hard to believe that he is 40 years old doing the taping of this episode. I think he's supposed to be a little bit younger in the actual continuity, but Calm Meeting just seems so much, not that he's older viscerally. He has an older presence about him. So that's what I want to say. He doesn't look old per se. He just has an older presence about him. So for me, he's an old soul. So for me, I loved the episode. I thought it evoked emotions, and I needed that. The last 3 or 4 episodes, I've been kind of falling asleep. But my hatred towards Alexis during this episode kept me awake because I did not remember the ending of this episode. And I'm disappointed she got the Federation treatment towards the end, because I know what's going to happen. They're going to put her in a nice, pushy, club-fed type facility on Earth or somewhere. She's not going to be punished in the way she should. But overall, I love the episode. I love the commentary. And I love the character development of Cisco in this episode. So I think it's funny. I did some research on this one too, and both the producer, Ira Stephen Bear, and the director, Corey Allen, were disappointed in the episode. They thought they did too much back and forth on being unclear if the colony was in a positive light or a negative light. And they also felt like they were doing more of a negative hit piece type show on Greenpeace with some of their commentary. But I think those pieces made it work because they got you conflicted over everything that was going on. They pissed you off with the episode, and I think they made it work. I also like, they did want to make this an Avery Brooks episode for Cisco, and I like that they let Avery Brooks act the part. They finally let him go in there and be angry when he slammed the book shut. This is one of the first times, I think, in this entire series up till now where we've really got to see Cisco play emotion, play a humanized character, and they let him pretty much go full tilt in this one. And I think that's part of what makes this one great. I agree with all the comments about kind of the creepy nature around Alexis and her son, and I'm pretty sure they borrowed the Duras sisters shirt from the wardrobe for him because I think he was showing more cleavage than a Duras sister through this entire episode. So just throwing that one out there. But yeah, I like this one. And it's funny in our behind the scenes commentary, what after we've thrown all you out, is we've said we've known this one was coming and we kind of figured this episode was gonna elicit some thoughts and some feedback from all of you. So I do see that Christopher and Nicole both want to jump into some commentary, but before we get there, Emily has a question for some of you, or at least one of you.
Specifically for Nicole, did you recognize Cassandra?
Yes, I couldn't place where she was from though.
Sinclair's woman?
Damn
Catherine?
it. Yes. Oh my God, Catherine, what was her last name?
Catherine Sakai.
Sakai.
Yes, I was like, why is this woman familiar? What? And it was literally like drive me nuts, and I know I couldn't Google it. So yeah. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
I had
Yeah,
to
it was
Google
funny.
it.
That same actress actually played a helmsman one of the first season episodes of Next Generation, but she auditioned for the role of Tasha Yar.
Oh, okay.
That ultimately went to
Oh, that
Denise
would be
Crosby.
different.
So she's been in the mix with Star Trek for a little bit with that role in Next Generation, but also as Emily pointed out, Catherine Sakai from Babylon 5. So she wanted to see if you would recognize that, Nicole. Christopher, what you got?
So I think it was Prentice. I think it was your point about how O'Brien kind of followed Sisko's lead. He could have said, no, it's me. I'm the one who deserves the punishment, as you were saying. But O'Brien is well trained. He's been in combat. They've been in these sort of situations before where he knows to follow his commander's lead, right? If Sisko's not objecting, if he's being calm, if he is accepting what is going on, O'Brien's going to follow his lead because he has to assume that he has a plan. He doesn't want to be the one who screws it up. And I kind of like that near the end. I think the other guy was Joseph, had figured out what O'Brien was doing. And O'Brien was like, look, we're going to get off this planet. I can hurt you, or I can make it look like I hurt you, right? And we can go from there. And like having him just still do what he needed to do, but in a way that wasn't overly emotional, right? Like he kept his calm and he showed that he was good under pressure. And I really appreciated that. And I grew to like O'Brien a little bit more. So
That's progress for you because you said in one of the last episodes that you were thinking about calling in sick because it had to do with O'Brien.
I hate it when like the whole episode focuses around him. But to see like the dynamic, we've seen him and Bashir a couple of times. We've seen him on his own. We haven't seen him and Sisko together all that much. And I think him and Sisko really worked well together. And I liked the way that they played off one another.
Chris?
Yeah, one thing I agree. This episode did make me like O'Brien more. To Prentice's point, he's always 10 toes down for the team. So I like the way that he came off in this episode. To answer Mike's question, I didn't like the content. I also didn't like the episode. And the reason why I didn't like the episode was because for me as a viewer in the audience, if I'm investing my time and my interest into following your story or watching your show, movie, whatever it is, I want some kind of payoff. And I want that payoff to be equal to or greater than the journey that you took me on through the show. And again, this is just me, right? So at the end, let me circle back. So to the point of Sisko's approach to handling the situation with Alexis being strong, going about it the way he did, I agree 100%. That's the way you got to do it, right? You have to show them that you're not going to let their cult leader break you down. And it's going to be a war of, what's the phrase I'm looking for? Attrition, so to speak, right? He wasn't going to back down. He wasn't going to give up. Great. Take me through that journey with him. But at the end, have it pay off. Did it pay off? No, it didn't pay off in my opinion, because everybody was fucking staying. Nobody was inspired by what he did. Nobody said, you know what? Yeah, Alexis, you're a piece of shit. Fuck you. Hope your pussy rots and falls off. Get out of here.
Jesus.
We're leaving, right? We're out of this hellhole. You did this to us. You stole our lives, our last 10 years of our lives. You put us through this shit. You bossed us around. You did this. You did. None of that happened. Nothing came of Sisko's torture and surviving the oppression that he went through. So that was one reason why I was like, okay, I can't, I hate this episode. The other one was, again, I said it before, I don't feel like Alexis got what she had coming to her. Like Prentice said, she's going to go, she's going to be in some cushy old Starfleet cell somewhere. She's going to get 3 square meals. She's going to get temperature control. She's going to be chilling for the rest of her life. Yeah, she's not free, but who is it that said she should be hung upside down and beat with a stick? Yeah, like Nicole said, like that's what she should have got. She should have got that plantation justice, right? Like getting taken away and probably never see her again. But like it wasn't satisfying to me. So the payoff for the main villain wasn't there either. So that's why, in my opinion, I didn't like the show and I didn't like the content because I didn't feel like I got the payoff that I deserved being put through that and going through that journey. And then that's what you give me at the end. Nobody is turned or inspired or is buying into what Sisko did the entire episode. She doesn't get her just desserts. Nah. That's why I'm not with it.
And I think that's part of the follow-up with it being a cult. The people still aren't sure what to do. And I want to comment one more thing on the behind the scenes. They were actually talking about the music used in the episode when she was doing that little bit of an end speech of hers. And they actually did the music in such a way that it was almost very close to based on what a church hymn would be based on for the music to play behind. And they did that very intentionally. As she was giving that, they leaned very much, they thought outside, what would Martin Luther do? And based it very much on like Protestant Lutheran style speaking, as well as the music to try to play up the emotional impact of that end scene.
If I could say one more thing real quick, to your point, I did notice the music, Blake, when she was talking. And I was kind of surprised. I'm like, this is some peaceful hymnal type music. I'm like, but in my mind, when I see her trying to passionately explain herself, I'm picturing the old black and whites of Adolf snapping on the fucking podium in front of his Nazi army. I'm like, this is a cult leader spewing her bullshit to keep her cult together. So the music, I was like, why are they playing this kind of music? And now that you explain it, it makes sense. But it just, yeah. Again, this is my opinion. I'm not saying you should be agreeing with me. That's just how I felt about it.
And hell, why do you need to watch black and white videos? You can watch YouTube videos from a year ago and get cult rallies.
So basically what Chris is saying is we all got blue balled at that ending. You get to the climax and you don't actually go. So that's what it kind of felt like. And I don't even have balls, but that's what it felt like to me. So anyway, that's not what I was going to say.
I was going to say, please tell us more about the feeling of blue balls, Nicole. Yes. We would love to hear more about this.
So, okay, two things. One thing that I will say I did like was the whole Sisko storyline. Like, we really got to see Sisko hold his ground. And I love when she's like, you can have that water if you change into these clothes. And he straight up fucking crawled back into that little cage box and was like, fuck you. I literally wrote down on my notes, I said, Sisko basically said, fuck you, and went back in that box and shut the fucking door. And that was his way of just kind of like, but yeah, I think the way he did it was the right way to do it. It was admirable. It wasn't a pissing match between them. It could have been a lot different, but the way he handled it was like, you ain't gonna break me, ho. I'm not gonna become one of your bottom bitches, okay? Like he's not going there. So I really
bottom shame here, Nicole. We don't do that either.
No, you know what I mean. Like he's not gonna become one of his hoes, okay? Oh, I also thought it was interesting that his dad was a chef, and we like kind of learned a little bit more about his background, about like his childhood and stuff. It was interesting to kind of get a little bit more insight into the man, the myth, Benjamin Sisko, you know, because I feel like as we've gone along, we've probably learned the least about him, I feel like, in some ways, and Odo, obviously. But so that was really cool, and I really loved how he stood his ground, and he just, that was probably the highlight of the episode. And another thing I thought was interesting, so I'm really into like cult documentaries and like reading books about cult. Like it's really the bite model and like all these things that the cults do. And this group and this community had all of the metrics and all of the checkpoints of a legit cult. And it was like so crazy because as I'm watching all of this unfold and like their punishments and their law and order and basically using sex as a weapon and basically like just kind of making everybody forget who they were and become these people in this community. And then at the end, they were also brainwashed. They weren't sure what to do. Should we stay? Should we go? Like that's what they do is they break you down of your individuality. You kind of sympathize with the leader because you're afraid and you don't know what to do. And like I watch a lot of these documentaries about people who got out of cults, and that's what they said. Like the biggest thing is like they completely take away your free will and your ability to think critically. So it's kind of like they're all at an impasse and they don't know what to do. So the fact that they didn't all bounce out of there right away does kind of suck, but I guarantee you at some point, now that they know they can have technology, motherfucker's going to be leaving as they go because it's going to take them a minute to kind of figure out, okay, we can make a decision now. So once they start having that free will back and they have that critical thinking back, I would bet that their opinions and their thoughts are going to change. But that's exactly what a cult leader does is they break all that down and they keep the information away from you so that you have no idea what's going on in the outside world. She specifically cut all communication with the outside world so they have no concept of anything that's happened in 10 years, right? Like it was just like all the makings of the cult, like ding, 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 ding. Like it was just so, to me, that part was really fascinating because I'm interested in that. I don't want to join one or anything, but I'm interested in like watching what happens when people leave and all that. But so I did appreciate the quality in that aspect of what they did and how they put the story together. But I just, every time I saw Alexis on the screen, it just made my blood boil. So it was really hard for me to separate that from anything else that was happening.
But I think she was supposed to, right? She was
Yeah.
supposed to piss you off.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned studying like the faiths of Earth, and Cisco quipped, well, you may even eventually become a god yourself, right? Because that's what she was, this charismatic leader who was trying to brainwash them. She's limiting information. It's us versus them. She's exploiting their labor. And they're not leaving because this was their whole world. Their whole worldview shifted because of the bullshit that she's been selling them for the past 10 years. And it's going to take some time to reprogram your brain, right? And I hope that the Federation doesn't just leave this planet on their own to figure their stuff out, right? I hope that they're sending diplomats down there, representatives down there to say, hey, you don't have to, but you can. You want to rejoin society? You want to rejoin the broader universe? Come on with us. Stay here if you want, or come on with us. And I hope they put in that work. I don't know that they will, because we're probably never going to see this planet again, but I do hope that that happens.
Prentice.
So to me, I saw there was a very subtle nod to that. What Cisco did and his stance did make a difference. When you saw the two children at the end of the episode staring into the hot box. So I think it was not loud. It was not very showy in terms of the payoff that we may have wanted, but probably to Chris's point and others that eventually it's going to unravel. But the young children that saw that example, that have the least familiarity with the history of what happened last 10 years, that will be the beginning of the end as this new generation comes up and realizes this has all been a farce. Now, these other people that are adults, they've been so ingrained into that cult for over a decade of life, they are having a real difficult time trying to break that. But for the children, the next generation, they saw the example he set, they heard the truth. And I think he laid or planted the seeds of a quiet revolution in that cult. So that's what I took from seeing the two children at the end, looking into that contraption, pondering what they just saw, what they just witnessed, and what the future may be for that society on that planet.
Yeah, that's cool, but I wanted to get my payoff.
But it was very Star Trek in that way. It wasn't going to be all of a sudden she's going to be hung and killed, and all of a sudden there's going to be retribution, and everybody's going to leave the planet and say, this has been a farce. We're leaving. Think about it. They invested 10 years of their life, their identity to toiling the soil, building society. So a lot of them don't want to leave because they're so tied to this cult idea. So it makes sense in some ways.
That's called the sunk cost fallacy. That's what that's called.
Exactly.
Mike.
Yeah, I mean, Prentice just stole my point too. No, I think that's exactly right. Like, I agree actually with what Chris said. There is that part of me that wanted a bigger payoff at the end, that thought it was very anticlimactic the way they didn't even like point at her and go like, "You're under arrest." It was just kind of like they walked over and held hands and then they beamed away and that was the end. It's like I want more of that. What I really want, what the animal inside me wants, is blood. But like, this is Trek, and you're not gonna get. They're not going to show you that because everybody is more enlightened in the future, in theory.
But you can
But
get it, and you have gotten it in Trek and in Duet, right? Like when
yeah, I don't know, man.
he's walking away, and I can't think of his name right now, but he's the Cardassian is walking away, and then he's
Yeah.
killed by the Bajoran after
Okay,
after
that's
Kira and
true.
everyone
So let me
had the breakthrough,
rephrase.
right?
Let me
So
rephrase.
like you
So that's not very
can have
Trek.
that.
It's not very Starfleet, and that's where we're at. We're dealing with Starfleet. So I get it. I understand the disappointment in it, and a part of me does agree, but I still overall personally like the. And I do agree too that like there's an unspoken follow-up. They're not all just gonna piss off back to DS9 and like that's the end of it. No one ever makes contact with them again. Like they now have access to technology again. Shit's gonna start unraveling. It's not just the kids. I would argue that even Joseph, who Miles connected a bit, like the seeds planted in him too, or he wouldn't have turned his back and let Miles conk him on the head and like.
Right. But he was also kind of the one at the end who was saying, "Hey, I'm staying. What about
Oh
the
yeah.
rest of you?"
I mean,
Right.
he and everyone else are very confused. And I think Prentice said it, I think Nicole said it, like maybe in that moment they were all too befuddled and clinging to that 10 years of life that they'd had to make a snap decision right then and there.
Mhm.
But like, I shit you not, like a week later, somebody's gonna ring them up and be like, "Hey, let me get that Uber. I'm ready to go." Like,
Yes, send the next runabout right on by.
send the U.S. Mississippi on over here.
We'll send the Cerritos.
Yes.
One thing I want to comment on too, part of I think what sells this is the actress they had for Alexis, Gail Strickland, I think did a phenomenal job. I think we've seen actresses that could have taken that very different directions that I don't necessarily think would have worked. I think she put as enraging as it is, she put the emotion, she put the human characteristics into the role that really helped drive that enraged. She's also worked with Avery Brooks previously. She was in Spencer for Hire. She was in
MASH.
A Man Called Hawk. She was in MASH. For anybody here who's Aaron Sorkin fans, The American President. She was the wife of the chief of staff in The American President. So we've seen her in a lot of different things, and I think she actually did very well in this, portraying Alexis the way she did.
It could have been very overacted, and she had like this level-headedness of it where it was still believable that people would follow her, but it wasn't so over the top that like it became a caricature.
She wasn't a mustache twirling villain. She was a subtle villain.
Well, and the opposite of that would be The Next Generation, Descent Part 2, which was when Lore took over the Rogue Borg. That was kind of an examination into a cult that Lore had established, but one, by the nature of that character, and two, I just think Brent Spiner did great as Data, but when he played Lore, I think he went a little over the top at times. And part writing, part him as an actor. But that one, I think, was far more that direction of almost that caricature cult leader with Descent Part 2, whereas this is a much more intriguing and engaging look at cult leadership than what Descent would have been. Emily.
I think it was Mike who was saying they'll probably bail eventually. And I would bet at the first sign of severe illness, they'll be like, shit, why are we doing this? She already let some of us die. Do we really need to continue? And that might change their mind. And it is disappointing that like they didn't want to leave. But I also get that they were not ready to admit that they were had, that they got sucked into this unhinged woman's cult. I mean, they didn't even really have a chance to process that she set this whole thing up. This was not an accident. This was her plan all along, and that she has allowed people they cared about to die because she was trying to create whatever kind of culty colony she had in mind. But I wouldn't be surprised if like someone gets real sick, real bad injury, and we're like, well, shit, we have technology now. Maybe this wasn't a great idea. Maybe technology is a lot better. Maybe we don't have to suffer through some of this shit.
Or maybe it's a balance.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's
because
a
they
great
could
point.
always work a balance in potentially, and we've seen this, I believe, in a few other where you have colonies that are maybe lower technology, and we saw this a few times even in Next Generation, I think, where you had colonies that rejected a lot of the modern technology, but would still keep ties for medical and food supply type thing, even if rejecting the overall larger replicators and things like that. So maybe it's a case of balance between the two going forward as well. But that end scene with the two kids looking, that I think that was a nice ender too. Mike.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give off a brief old man yells at cloud kind of vibe for a second. To say
You're good at those. They're your thing.
But to say that, like, so when this episode starts and Miles and Cisco beam down and they first encounter people and they're laying it all out before you really meet Alexis. Like, here's what happened, here's what we've done. Like, we've kind of created our little paradise, our little utopia here. And like, there's a long while like run up to this where you're thinking like maybe what's the angle gonna be? Is the angle gonna be that there's an evil cult leader? Is the angle gonna be that these people really have found, for lack of a better description, a better life, a more fulfilling life? We live in a time right now where I'm gonna look at things like social media and go, this was objectively a bad idea. Like, is AI here to help or to kill us all? I don't know yet. Probably a little of both. Would we have been better off if we had never invented it at all? We'll find out, won't we? But there was a bit of that, like in the beginning of this episode, where it took me a while at least to decide, like, what's the angle going to be? Like, are these people actually the bad guys, or are they going to show, Miles and Cisco a better life? And that's going to be where the dilemma's at. The part where it really tipped is when you meet Alexis. And for me personally, the part where I ultimately, like, the light switch flipped and I was like, oh, this shit is bad, is when Miles walks in on Cisco reading her books and he's like, yeah, she writes tons of books. She's a very prolific author, and these are already on our shelves in every room for us to read. Like, she's controlling.
Is ready.
Yeah, dude. I'm like, I am pretty sure I have had this professor in college.
To the point of, like, they're technophobic, right? And Alexis kept saying, we've lost a sense of community. But technology can improve our lives. It can connect us, right? It can give us a sense of community in places where you might not have it otherwise, where you're being rejected for who you are, or even just like your interests, right? If you're being constantly made fun of for what you like to do, for who you are, if you can find that sense of community online, right, using technology, it actually does make the world a better place, and it can be a force for good. And I get, is AI going to kill us? It could, right? But there's always this tug of war with technology. And to shun it or to fully embrace it to where you're just living a life of leisure and just not doing a damn thing, right? There's extremes on each side, right? And this was the extreme on the technology is evil side.
Yeah, I mean, I think Emily hit the nail on the head with it. Sorry if I'm jumping in out of order here, but like,
you are,
but they're like, that's a really good point, because everything has a pro and a con. And like, the idea that these people decided to farm and decided that they actually liked working for their food better than like pushing buttons on a replicator isn't, like, it makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of people who like to grow their vegetables in the garden instead of go to the grocery store and buy them. And they get fulfillment out of that. They get whatever out of that. And I think there's that community aspect of it too. But there are degrees, because as soon as, like Emily pointed out, as soon as a sickness hits and they draw the conclusion of like, oh shit, we cured this person of the sickness that killed Dave 2 weeks ago when Alexis was in charge, like, they're going to go, okay, we done fucked up. Like, we should have been doing something better, and we got bamboozled big time.
I think, to Christopher's point also, as far as people being able to find online communities, I think those of us on this show and from Gray 17 can speak to that aspect, especially given the year we have had and the people that we have never met, that we live nowhere near that reached out to us from literally across the globe and reached out to one, not even about the show, just to ask about us as individuals and to make sure we were doing okay with everything that happened this year with the loss of Scott and changing around the show, and just seeing that community of the people who engaged with us, who reached out to us on that. So I think you have a very good point there with online communities. And I mean, also you had, before things went online, even thinking about like the LGBTQ community, you used to have different publications and classified ads and things that they would try to build community. But really, once online chat forums and groups came up where people could connect and be themselves in online forums and build community that way, before it was really safe or possible to do in more public areas. So there are upsides to the internet. As far as AI killing all of us, on our Discord, we do have Jessi's pine-scented panic hour conspiracy theory corner. And after one of our episodes, there are a few of our listeners who I think are convinced we are all an AI construct, or at minimum that Jessi is an AI construct and was glitching in one episode because something went haywire with the editing and also attempting to remove those goddamn clicks caused by Christopher's fucking ink pen. So we got those edited, but Jessi sounded a little weird, so they now think that there's a glitch in the Jessi AI. We promise we're getting that rebooted. It'll be back just fine here at a future episode. Last week's episode wasn't it for those who listened to that recording.
That's what caused the reboot.
No shit. Hell, that one might cause me to reboot. There's a reason I'm drinking. Nicole.
So a couple things. I did want to touch on what you were just saying too, Blake, about online communities. So here's the thing, like the stuff that they were doing on this planet wasn't bad. Learning how to grow food, learning how to use the land, like it wasn't bad. Having a solid community of support around you, learning how to sew, make your clothes, and sharing. The concept of what they were doing wasn't bad per se, but you also need technology to go hand in hand with that. Because again, there's limits on everything, right? Technology is not always a bad thing in the sense of, I mean, look at how many people during the pandemic hung out on Zoom because they couldn't leave their houses. Blake, you touched on it with our communities for the last podcast and this podcast, but I've even made friends on Discord from watching a Twitch channel. A bunch of us joined a Discord, and I have friendsgiving with these people. I hang out with these people. Some of them live in my area, and I would have never met these people if I didn't go on that Twitch stream and join that Discord community.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because whenever things happen, I always find myself going to that Discord and like sharing and like talking, and like we all support each other. We're all there for each other. A lot of us live local, but a lot of us don't. So it's cool because the people who do live local, we hang out and do stuff. So I think that there's pros and cons to both. I think somebody said that, but like doing what they did and pairing it with technology and medicine would be a paradise if you think about it. You know what I mean? But you have to have both, like one hand washes the other, right? So the biggest thing I would say in that sense, like that they really could have used the technology for was to get medicine for the people that were sick, right? They probably wouldn't have lost anybody if that bitch turned that button off and they could have got medication and stuff. So I think that what they were doing and the concept of what they were doing was great. Poor execution and making it a cult was probably not the best way to do it. But there is something to be said about community, whether it's in person or online, because I'll tell you what, when shit hits the fan and people show up for you, it doesn't matter how they show up, but they show up. That's what community really is all about,
Mhm.
you know? And I think that that's a good thing to have, but you also have to have the other stuff that goes with it.
Well, and I think, Nicole, another dynamic and aspect to look at in this is the cult part aside, what they were doing on the planet, wanting to form that community, work without technology,
Yeah.
do the farming, is not inherently a problem if they chose to do so.
Yes.
The argument would be, on my part, is they were robbed of the choice to make that decision.
Yeah.
Alexis
And that
made
inherently is
that
the problem.
decision for them. And that, to me, is where
Yeah.
the problem starts. Even before she
Agree.
became the cult bitch that she is, that she made that choice to put them there so she could run what would amount to her experiment, which anyone that has ever worked through any type of sociology research or any type of research that involves even interviewing human beings, let alone something like that. I mean, there's IRBs, there are processes, and she like threw all it out the window and said, fuck it, I'm going to maroon a ship here and form my little cult commune to my standard of living.
I agree
and
100%.
took that. Chris.
Yeah, that was actually what I was gonna touch on was,
Oops, sorry.
No. I mean, we're all on the same page. Like, she stripped them of their autonomy. Like, she took that choice from them. And I just felt like if I was one of the cult people, or I don't want to say cult people, if I was living in that community and I found out Alexis stranded me on this fucking planet for 10 years to do some of her bullshit journal experiments, I would have lost it. I would have been like, nah. We gotta we gotta huddle up and figure out what we're gonna do to her, because she ain't just gonna go off to prison and get 3 square meals a day. Like that ain't, we can't do that. But a question, didn't Joseph say at the end when he was like, nah, we're staying here, that wasn't part of his thing? He said we're gonna have to decide if we want to turn that machine back on to block all technology or not. Like, see, this is what I'm saying, man. Like, after all this shit went down and all this stuff was revealed, they're still sitting around talking about, well, yeah, I mean, we might turn that bitch back on. What?
But it would be their choice to do it.
Yeah,
right,
I know, but that's
also
what I'm
they've
saying.
been
Like,
brainwashed, and
right, I get that. I get that. But what I'm saying is not
you
one
can't
person.
just break the cult.
Yeah,
that
but what I'm saying
quickly.
is not one person there was like, well, hold on a minute now. We're all just going to seriously just sit back and just be like, yeah, we're just going to go back to the way shit was before now that we know all of this. And then I kind of felt like Joseph was just stepping into Alexis's role at the end.
I think he was trying to fill the void. There was a leadership void, and he was like, I'm next. Right?
Yeah, no, see, and I would have been like, nah, Joseph, shut up. You ain't running shit. Nobody named you boss. You're going to step up talking about you want to turn back on the machine. You don't. We're going to stay here. Like, you don't speak for me. Like, there was just so much about the way it ended. I was just like, I'm not feeling this.
It was overly clean. There should have been at least one person that decided they didn't want to stay there anymore immediately.
Yeah, and they
look. Can I come?
thought that
Can
they
I
would
come
have
with
like
y'all?
had to like emergency transport her out, like right,
Yeah.
like
One of those kids is
transport
like,
her
I
out
want to
now.
play Roblox.
Like, nobody when Cisco was on death's doorstep talking about 4 to beam up, like nobody was like, hold on, that's 5.
Yeah.
Beam me up. I want to get out of here. I want to go where there's replicators and all this other stuff. Like, maybe not even to that point where it's that definitive, but not one person can speak up and be like, well, hold on now. Maybe all of us don't want to stay here. Like, before they leave, can we at least figure out for ourselves if we want to stay or want to go? Like, there wasn't even a question. It was everybody just kind of funneled into, what did they call it? The ship that was there. I can't remember what they named it.
What was it? The Intrepid?
The cabin.
The cabin, yeah. They all just kind of
originally
funneled
the
back
Santa
into
Maria,
the
I
cabin.
think.
Yeah, which a little on the nose with that one.
Right? Yeah, as a Santa Maria. Nicole.
I just had 2 small comments that are kind of not really important, but it made me laugh. So, did anyone else get Robin Hood vibes when we met
Yes.
the guys at the beginning? In my head, I was like, oh, Robin Hood's here. Watch out, everyone.
First it was Robin Hood, and then when they zoomed in on the guy that turned out to be her son, I was like, then I got big homeschool vibes.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I was going to bring up was it kind of reminded me of B5 when I was calling Byron very Koreshi. Alexis was very Koreshi, I have to say. It just made me laugh because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, this bitch is like another Koreshi Byron bitch, you know? But yeah, and then I started going to Men in Tights and I started singing Men in Tights as I'm looking at this guy with his bow and arrow. And I was like, you're a disgrace to Robin Hood, Men in Tights.
He was one of the merry men.
Yeah, well.
I'm going to have to go watch Men in Tights tonight, damn it.
That's such
The
a
movie
great
or
movie.
something else.
Great
Well,
movie.
Sure.
No, I said, hey, Blinken.
I watched Blazing Saddles the other day, so yeah, I'm due for some more Mel Brooks.
I'm going to watch Dracula Dead and Loving It because 'tis the season.
Ooh, there's Renfield, you idiot. Emily, you must give a Spaceballs quote first.
I can
I'm
think
trying
of
to
one.
buy assholes.
That one works.
Yep.
Yo.
Yo.
Okay, I think we've covered most of the cult stuff, but can we talk about O'Brien and just appreciate his skill? Like, because in the previous episode, it does highlight his capabilities. And this one does too, because we get to see more of like, he figures out the tech, like, oh, this is where the thing is that's causing all these problems. And oh shit, this dude with the bow and arrow is trying to off me in some random forest, and who's gonna find me? And then how quick could he hop out of that uniform to hang it up and act as a decoy? Because I was like, you know what? You're on that
he made a
uniform
damn
pretty fucking
compass.
quick there,
Him
dude.
and Keiko have practiced.
I was gonna say sometimes Keiko got that look.
But it's like I hadn't really thought of that, and then I watched it this time. I was like, damn, that was fast. Like you were just like slide right out of that. How's that work?
Well, it's not like it had 13 buttons on the pants, so.
God damn. No. The one thing that they haven't, taken from the Navy is those damn pants. They're not even, those buttons aren't even functional anymore. They added a damn zipper. I get out and they add a damn zipper. Do you know how many times I had to pee and I had to unbutton the entire 13 buttons?
Yes, but imagine the time saving for other activities during Fleet Week. Just throwing it out there.
But I didn't have the zipper.
Well, yeah.
Oh, anyway.
But on O'Brien,
I had the buttons.
Speaking
and
more
it's
about
fun for one
O'Brien's,
or two, but it's not fun for 13.
Good God.
On O'Brien's skill, and I think that's one of the things that really the newbies don't have on this show, because we've not had you watch a lot of background. Some of us have watched Next Generation, some have not. But if you go back into the Next Generation, the episode The Wounded, which deals with a former captain that O'Brien served under during the Cardassian War on the Rutledge. And they really get into his service in the Cardassian War and the effects it had on him and how it directed his career. They've touched on it a little bit so far in Deep Space Nine, but I think to truly get the O'Brien we're seeing now, and I think it would be relatively harmless if anyone wanted to go back and watch it. If you go back and watch the TNG episode, The Wounded, that will give you some insight into Miles O'Brien. And actually, I will say a scene out of the episode Whispers that got cut, when O'Brien was in the runabout flying to the planet to try to warn the aliens of the conspiracy, there was supposed to be a scene where he was singing the song of Minstrel Boy, which is a direct callback to the episode The Wounded, where he sang that with Captain Maxwell in The Wounded. So I would say check that out potentially. That might give you some more insight into all of this.
Yeah, that was a really good episode.
It was probably one of TNG's best ones, actually.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts and feels on Paradise? Alexis?
Don't join a fucking cult.
Yeah,
Cults are bad,
does stupid things
okay?
at least once or twice.
Okay, cults are bad.
Even if they masquerade as a political movement, cults are bad. And before anybody accuses this show of having a political bent, I'm going to sit there and throw some of Bernie supporters in that same goddamn group of the cult as some of the other guys. Just saying. I'm going to throw both wings of that into the cult pot and say, quit following the fucking crackpots. So let's do some questions and predictions from our newbies so we can get them the hell out of here and wrap this up. Let's start with Christopher.
So question, is Jake going to go to the academy? Because they had mentioned in the episode that his mechanical aptitude was low, and I think that might have been just more of a O'Brien point saying, hey, well, I didn't test very highly on mechanical aptitude as well, but look at me now. And also, I really have a feeling that this is not going to be the last time that we see Sisko's fortitude and his resistance to kind of torturous situations.
Chris, questions and predictions.
No real questions or predictions. I think the episode was pretty straightforward. From the sound of it, I don't think we're going to see any of these people again or come across this planet again. So yeah, nothing from me.
Nicole.
I really didn't have too much. I actually am glad you brought that up, Christopher, about the Jake thing, because I did write that down at the very beginning about that conversation. So I am curious to see what's going to happen with Jake, and where he's going to end up, and if he's going to kind of follow in his dad's footsteps or O'Brien's. And then, yeah, I mean, I would say prediction wise, I just hope we get more of the O'Brien and Cisco dynamic together. I really like that. And obviously, anytime we get Kira and Dax together, I also enjoy that because they are really fun. So,
Alrighty, I think that wraps up our discussion here for Paradise. We will be back next week where we discuss the episode Shadow Play. In the meantime, you can join the conversation with us. We have all of our social media links down below, including our Patreon. You can get access there. I will say we are going to start posting some outtakes to the Patreon from the various shows. You don't want to miss those. You can hear just how off the rails we can really go. Although I have to say, for a show about cults and a cult leader bitch, we stayed pretty well on topic this evening. Didn't derail nearly as much as we normally do. So check out our Patreon for those outtakes. Joining our Patreon at any level also gets you access to our Discord. As we have alluded to in the Discord, we have sections with spoilers, sections without spoilers. Mike has his questionable music taste section. Jessi has her conspiracy theories. And Emily has her smut corner, where allegedly there's an audio clip of something about Free the Titties is showing up. So make sure to check out the Discord as well. You don't want to miss what we post there. Until next time, I have been Blake, and with me has been
Chris,
Nicole,
Prentice.
AI is going to be the death of us.
Emily.
Damn it, Mike. And Christopher.
Okay, so if you've not seen the show, get the fuck out.
Don't join a cult, anybody. And if you have, take off the red hat.
Who says you're not already in a cult? You're
Nobody.
here.
One
Yeah,
of us.
this could
One
be-
of us.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Especially the Lies, a Deep Space Nine podcast. You can find all the places to listen to and watch this podcast by searching for Especially the Lies on your podcast app or on YouTube. We want to hear from you, so join the conversation at Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review where you are listening to or watching this podcast. Especially the Lies is not affiliated with, and the podcast has not been prepared, approved, or licensed by Paramount or any other owners of the Star Trek copyright. All clips included in this podcast are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. They are included here for purposes of review, and no infringement is intended.
Why have you brought me here? Show yourselves. What do you want?
The Cisco has returned to us.
He arrives with questions.
There are always questions.
Welcome back to Going Through the Wormhole with us prophets who have seen this show a few times. And I do love the idea that we're going to call ourselves prophets on the night we're talking about a cult. I think that just fits perfectly within the theme of the episode. So we do have some questions, not that many. We kind of expect this. We're not fully into that where we're going to get those. But Emily, what have we got that we can maybe answer or bullshit our way through?
Does Jake go to Starfleet Academy?
No.
No.
And I think that's going to be a bit... I like Jake's story arc, actually.
I do. Yeah.
But we are going to see he is going to be working with O'Brien, and there's going to be some episodes coming up that there's the one where he's working with the chief and they're it's the old ore process. I can't remember the name of the episode, but they're in the old ore processing plant, and that's a great Cisco Jake episode also. Also a Ducat episode. I love that episode too because it thinks there's a Bajoran revolt in ore processing.
Yes. And I think we'd be remiss to say that Jake doesn't go to Starfleet. Somebody in Jake's little sphere goes to Starfleet, and it's not somebody that any of the newbies are going to expect.
No.
Yeah.
And I like Jake's story arc because it ends up playing a really important part later in the series. When he goes on that path, you don't expect it to be as vital to the storyline as it actually turns out to be.
Yeah.
So that'll be really interesting how they perceive that.
And I love the dynamic they play with it too, where he goes that path and ultimately Cisco's supportive of it and supports the choice Jake makes not to follow in his footsteps. Because I think we've all seen there's a lot of dynamics there, particularly in father-son relationships, where it's you want to go a different direction or not follow what your parent did, and it causes friction. So I like the way they ultimately played that through the whole arc on both sides, both on Avery Brooks as the father figure, as well as Jake pursuing his own path.
Yeah. So the ore processing plant or area of the station is season 3, episode 7, Civil Defense.
That is a
believe
great
it's that
episode.
one. Yeah, because the crew is endangered when an old Cardassian security program is accidentally activated. So it is a pretty solid episode.
It is. Yeah.
And anytime you get Mark Limo in there.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm glad you brought up the wounded, because I actually did not really remember that episode too terribly much, or at least I didn't remember it being so focused on Miles's backstory. And I actually found myself as he was explaining some of his history, questioning the timeline of serving in the Cardassian front and not knowing anything about technology, and then being the chief transporter officer on the Enterprise. So I'm glad that it does actually make sense and kind of places everything. And you just reminded me, because Mark Alemo is actually also in The Wounded, not as Gul Dukat, but as a different Cardassian with worse makeup.
Yes, before they got the good makeup.
Yeah, and the weird helmets.
But because there's that whole scene in 10 Forward with Miles where he's talking to the other Cardassian, not the one played by Mark Alemo, but one of the other Cardassians, and basically says, "It's not you I hate. I hate what I became because of you."
Yep.
That episode is just phenomenal. Did our newbies have anything else for us?
That was pretty much. Well, Christopher said he predicts that is not the last time we'll see Sisko's fortitude, and he is not wrong.
Yeah, he's not
But
wrong.
that's also a
This
pretty
time.
solid prediction.
Yeah. We're seeing like Sisko come out of his shell. At least the way the depiction of the character is. That's why I love it. It was like the emergence of my favorite captain at this point. And I just had a conversation with somebody the other day that said, I grew up with TNG, and for a long time it was, of course, Patrick Stewart as being my favorite captain. But as I grew to watch this series in its entirety in the last 15 years, I had a healthy appreciation for Sisko handling the adversity he faced in his command. There wasn't a lot of happy endings, not immediately in Deep Space Nine. And see him to go through that entire arc is just a wonderful payoff. And to see how his personality, that stoicism, that dignity play out throughout these episodes over the season, it's a tremendous payoff in the end, especially.
Well, I think when you look at this episode in particular around Sisko and the way he's portrayed in this one the producer is Ira Stephen Bear, who's going to go on to become the showrunner when it really starts to turn a corner. A couple of the writers on this episode would become writers on staff, and the writers one would also become a producer on the show. So as you see these people come in that I think have a much better grasp of what to do with Sisko and how to let Brooks be Sisko, that's when you're going to start to see more. And we've said that several times, but you're starting to see the creative team come together that knows how to make this show what it can be.
I was looking at some of the episodes we have coming up, and so the next one we record is Shadow Play, but I think the Maquis, when we get there and he has a confrontation with Cal, I think that really kind of starts to solidify Sisko as a character, because that's a very tense situation in so many aspects. And yeah, it finally seems like there's a better feel for who Sisko is as a character, and Brooks is Brooks. He does it well.
I thought it was funny to watch this episode and try to think about how the different captains that we've known through Trek would have handled the situation. And like, to me, it's like Kirk would have punched and or screwed his way out of it. Picard would have given a very rousing philosophical speech, and everybody would have been like, "Oh yeah, no, he's right," and like the way that they handled Sisko was brilliant. I mean, he handled it in my opinion, what was the most logical, down to earth way that somebody could, to do it with that stoicism and that gritty determination, that leading by example. That is the thing that makes him special. The Hall of Trek. And Janeway would have committed some kind of war crime. So
yeah. I think mentioning with Picard too, I think it's funny because we'll also see later in Sisko's journey with the Maquis and in this series, Picard would throw Shakespeare quotes at people, right? And when you get into like his hunt for Eddington, He's quoting Victor Hugo.
Mm.
It's Les Mis that he's going to. The other one, as we talk about that, and I went back and forth on this because the Maquis are going to come out a little bit out of nowhere in DS9.
Yeah.
Because it was set up in TNG, and I don't think we need to do a deep dive there, but I've really thought about recommending some folks watch Journey's End, because that's the forced relocation of the Native Americans where they give up their Federation citizenship, and what really kind of marks the start of tension in the neutral zone in TNG is going to be Journey's End. There'll be a bit they don't understand with Wesley and the Traveler, which I think was just a stupid way to get a stupid character off the stupid show. I love Will Wheaton, don't get me wrong, but Wesley was a question.
They didn't seem to know what to do with him, so.
Well, because he was basically Gene Roddenberry's ego exercise to make it was Gene Roddenberry writing himself into the show as the Wonder Kid.
Where was Journey's End?
Season 7.
7. Okay, couldn't
Episode
remember.
20, like almost the end of the series.
Okay. I can't, for some reason, my brain was like, is it 6? Is it 7? I haven't watched in a while, so.
Yeah, it was very tail end of season 7 because it was, pretty much was Journey's End, and then we get Firstborn, which is more on Worf being Starfleet's greatest father. Preemptive Strike would be another one because that's got Ro Lawrence, and that's 24. Ro Lawrence graduates from advanced tactical training to lure the Maquis out, and she defects, which I think that would be a good one to have them watch because Ro was going to be Kira originally before they could make it happen. So I think we might recommend that we have them watch Journey's End and Preemptive Strike and make some notes on it to share with us. Maybe share that as a Patreon thing, share their written notes on those two.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll have to go back and rewatch those because it's been a while since I've watched TNG, but yeah, because not having a full understanding of like the Maquis, I feel like
it'll be a little lost.
Yeah.
So okay, I'll have them watch those two, and for our listeners, after we have them watch those, we'll have them write basically some first impressions. We won't do a full recorded episode on those two, but we'll have them write their first impressions and thoughts on those 2 episodes. And then what we'll do is I'll have them send me those and we'll put them up onto the Patreon account. So if you do want to read our newbies first impressions on that, those will be on the Patreon and we'll potentially get them over onto the Discord later. I might put a new channel on the Discord for Retro Trek, and we can use that there as well.
Nice.
Right. Anyone have anything else we want to talk about with this episode this evening? I think this was a good one, and looking forward to the next one. I have been Blake, and with me has been
Emily
and Mike
and Prentice.